Hello, my name's Andrew Brooks and welcome to my YouTube channel, and in this episode we're going to be looking at the various members of Wings and where are they now. Hello and thank you once again for joining me on my YouTube channel. Can I firstly just say a big thank you to everyone who has subscribed over the past few weeks. My subscription rates have gone through the roof, so please carry on subscribing, and if you're not already a subscriber, if you click somewhere down here, I think there'll be a little button for you to click on, and at the end of the video over here there'll be some videos which probably I think you'll enjoy. Some are mine, and might be recommending something of not mine, but anyway, please follow the links and please subscribe. Anyway, thinking back to our subject in hand, so we're now looking at the members of Wings that have come from Wings' inception in 1971 all the way through to 1981, so that's a 10-year period. So let's start with a little trivia quiz question. Which artist has had #1 hits as a solo, a duo, a trio, a 4-piece and a 5-piece? And of course the answer is Paul McCartney as a solo artist, duos with or duets rather, with Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson, as a quartet obviously the Beatles, but the trio and the 5-piece, well, of course that was Wings. And they had various sort of, lineups from 71 through to 81. 3 core members: Paul, Linda and Denny Laine, and we'll come on to those. So we'll just have a quick look at Paul very quickly. We all know he was born in Liverpool, 1942, member of the Beatles, which when they broke up in 1970 he released a solo album, McCartney, and one with his wife Linda called Ram, and they then created, the pair of them along with Denny Laine, they created Wings in 1971. So Paul created it in 1971 after the breakup of the Beatles a year earlier. So we look on to Linda now, born in 1941 in New York, and throughout her time in Wings she was a vocalist and mainly played keyboards, and I know Linda probably isn't some of your favourites out there, but I quite like her in Wings. I've met her. She was when she was alive, and she was a lovely person. But I felt she brought something to the band, and you either love her or hate her, I suppose. I really like her, and I think she was an integral part of the band. As I say, she was there from the creation of the band through to its demise in 1981. During that time she is credited with co-writing some of their songs, and also writing on her own Seaside Woman for Susie and the Red Stripes, which is Wings. So I think she was an important part of the band. The other person that formed the core trio, because there was 3 of them that remained in it from start to finish, was of course Denny Laine, vocalist, keyboard, and I'm guessing guitarist rather, and I'm guessing sort of dabbled in other instruments as well, bass and keyboards. Now he also was in the band from the very start all the way through to 1981, and in fact we can pinpoint the exact date that Wings basically ceased to be. That was the 27th of April in 1981. Now Denny Laine, he wrote many songs performed by Wings, but he also co-wrote many songs, and such as he wrote Time to Hide again and again and again, Deliver Your Children, but he also co-wrote one of the biggest selling singles in the UK, and that is Mull of Kintyre. Now unfortunately Denny Laine in the 80s fell into a bit of financial trouble, and he had to sell his share of Mull of Kintyre, and he sold it back to Paul. So although Denny is credited with co-writing it, Paul actually gets all the money from it. But there we are. What else have we got? Since leaving Wings, he's recorded several solo albums. One of them was Japanese Tears, and this actually included some tracks that were recorded during this time with Wings. So you've got Paul McCartney and Wings on Japanese Tears. Check it out, not a bad album. His solo albums continued through until 2008, and that was his last solo album, and that was called The Blue Musician. And I think we can safely say that one of the problems that Wings suffered was obviously when Paul got arrested, and he didn't want to tour anymore because he got arrested during just about to embark on a Japanese tour. I think Denny probably missed the touring side of it. You know, he was a jobbing musician. He worked with Moody Blues before joining Wings and things like that. So I think he actually missed the touring aspect of it. So he still tours the US and also plays like conventions, Beatle Fest and things like that. Okay, coming on to the next member of Wings is Denny Iwell. He's the drummer, and he was brought in for Paul and Linda's album Ram to drum on their album, and then he joined Wings officially in 1972. He stayed a year until 1973, but he did perform on Wings Wildlife and Red Rose Speedway, and he also performed on Live and Let Die single. That he provided the drums for that. Big hit. Where is he now? Well, he currently lives in Los Angeles, LA, and he still does perform around the US and on cruise ships. I was on a cruise and I'd missed him by a week. He had performed the week before, and I think what his little speciality thing is, he will play Live and Let Die, and then he will play the drums along with it to show how he drummed for that particular track. And I wish I could have seen it, but there we are. I missed him by a week. According to Denny, he's still in touch with Paul, and in fact, Denny Iwell and other musicians re-recorded Ram and issued it as a 50th anniversary release earlier this year. So moving on to the next member who joined was Henry McCulloch, and he was a guitarist and a vocalist as well, provide backing vocals. So Henry was born in Northern Ireland in 1943, and he was brought into Wings in 1972, only lasted a year until 73, and he was brought in for the Red Rose Speedway to drum on the Red Rose Speedway album and the singles of Hi Hi Hi. And I keep saying drumming, he wasn't a drummer, he was a guitarist, so he was brought in to provide guitar and vocals for Red Rose Speedway, Hi 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 and Live and Let Die. However, and I think this is acknowledged widely by Paul, his most outstanding work in Wings is during My Love, the single, and subsequent releases. He asked Paul could he play the solo, and Paul let him, and he performed this magnificent guitar solo. So check it out if you haven't already. My Love, and Paul now often cites that that solo is Henry's signature, and he wouldn't change it. After Wings, after he left in 73, he went on to perform with the Frankie Miller Band, and he also released a solo album with a Beatles connection. Bear with me. This is the album, Mind Your Own Business. No, that's not an instruction, that's the name of the album. Henry McCulloch, Mind Your Own Business, and it's on George Harrison's Dark Horse record label. How fab is that? So, so he then went on to release that. He then returned, I say returned, he was born in Northern Ireland, but he went to Dublin, where he lived for a while, and he joined a local band called the Flower Cowboys. Now, I'm reliably informed by my friend Peter Fitzpatrick, who lives in Dublin. Hi Peter, thanks for the info. That Flower, and it's not spelt like that, but I'm assured that's how it's pronounced, is Irish for festival. So the Flower Cowboys. And he then started a band called the Hard Travellers with another musician called Zoot Money. Now Zoot Money has also got another link to Paul McCartney. In about 1980, I believe it is, Zoot Money released an album. Bear with me. Here it is. Mr. Money released it on Paul McCartney's, see it down the bottom there, MPL label. So another little link. Don't worry, Henry doesn't play on this, but I just thought I'd show you the Zoot Money album. Yeah, so he joined up with Zoot Money and carried on performing with the Hard Travellers. Now, sadly, in 2012, Henry McCulloch suffered a heart attack, and he never recovered from it. And unfortunately, he died in 2016. So much lost, but we can still hear his fabulous guitar solo on My Love. Okay, next into the band we have Jimmy McCulloch, who's a vocalist, guitarist, a fabulous guitarist, lead guitarist, and also bass guitarist. Now, Jimmy was born in Scotland in 1953, by far the youngest member of Wings ever. He joined Wings in 1974 and stayed for 4 years, and he left in 1978. His debut with the band was on the single Junior's Farm, and he then recorded on Venus and Mars and Speed of Sound. And it's during this period when Paul was sort of encouraging other band members to maybe perform some songs, write some of their songs, and the band perform them. And he wrote 2 anti-drug songs, one for each album. So on Venus and Mars, you've got Medicine Jar, which for me is one of the standout tracks on the album. And during the tour, if ever you get to watch Rock Show, it's incredible. So yeah, he wrote Medicine Jar for Venus and Mars, and Wings at the Speed of Sound, he wrote Wino Junko. So they're both anti-drug songs. And he then carried on working with Wings, starting work on the next album. Didn't know what it was going to be, but it turned out to be the work for London Town. But he actually left the band in 78 before the album was finished. So I believe he was out in the Virgin Islands when they're on the yachts recording it, but then he left mid sessions. He returned back home to the UK, where he joined the reformed Small Faces band, and he also was in other bands called Wild Horses and the Dukes. Now, although Jimmy did write some anti-drug songs, it's really unfortunate because in 1979 Jimmy died, and he died from heart failure due to morphine and alcohol poisoning. Now, the story is that Jimmy wasn't really into hard drugs, and there's a new book out called Little Wing. I'm going to read it because I think Jimmy was a fantastic guitarist, so I'm very, very interested in his story. And unfortunately he died through drugs, in essence morphine and alcohol, but from all accounts he wasn't a hard drug user. Next into the band we have a drummer brought in at the same time as Jimmy, called Jeff Britton. He was born in 1943 in London, England. He joined Wings in 74, as I said, just in time for the Venus and Mars sessions. However, he left very soon afterwards in 1975, after what was believed to be a falling out with Paul. After Wings, he went on to other bands such as Manfred Mann's Earth Band, Rough Diamond and The Keys. Now, interestingly, I'm not sure if Paul was aware of this at the time, because if there was a falling out it may have got nasty, but Jeff Britton is actually a professional kickboxer, and he represented Great Britain in various competitions many times. Now, I was trying to do a bit of research on what Jeff is up to today, and he's still alive. However, it's really hard because I've scoured the internet and I can't find anything other than referencing he was in Wings and his kickboxing. However, I do know that he is still playing the drums, because in 2020 a video cropped up of him in a studio recording a drum track for someone. So he is still out there and he is still drumming, so that's good news. I don't know if anyone has any more information on Jeff, drop us a message or let us know. Okay, as I said, Jeff didn't last very long, and due to falling out with Paul, so excuse me, so they needed another drummer, and this is where Joe English steps in. He's a drummer and a vocalist, and born in New York in 1949. Now, he joined Wings after answering an advert. A band needed a drummer, and So he responded to this advert, walked into a basement, and then discovered he was basically auditioning for Paul McCartney and Wings. Good for Joe. He actually got the gig, and he replaced Jeff on that. He performed on Venus and Mars album, and also Wings at the Speed of Sound. And he actually on Speed of Sound he actually performed a track called I Must Do Something About It. That's his vocal. Now on the recent sort of remaster reissue, you can hear Paul's version and Joe's version sort of relatively side by side. Check them out. I prefer Joe's version only because that's how I know the album. So when I listen to the album, that's what I expect to hear. But it is great hearing Paul's version of it as well. So along with Jimmy, he also took part for the '76 tour, the big tour that Wings did, and this is probably the most famous tour for the band. It's Wings over the world. They toured America, they toured Europe, they toured Australia, and if ever you watch Rock Show, this will be the go-to tour for you to watch. And you get Jimmy on there as well as Joe, Denny Lane, Paul and Linda, and backed by real horns, Howie Casey and all of them. So and just like Jimmy, he felt a bit homesick, and he actually left during the London Town sessions at the same time as Jimmy. Returned back to the US, where he joined a band called Sea Level, and then he formed the Joe English Band. And it was during this sort of period where I think the phrase is he was a born-again Christian. He rediscovered his religion, and then he played with many Christian bands. Unfortunately, in the 1990s, he had health problems, and he had an injury to his ankle, which I can imagine as for a drummer, that's quite a serious thing, because you need the bass drum kick. However, he is still involved in music within the church. So if ever you're in that area where Joe English's church is, you will probably be involved in some of the music somehow. Okay, now moving on to the latter part of the Wings bands, we've got Lawrence Jaba. Now Lawrence is a fabulous guitarist, session guitarist, bass guitarist and vocals. He was born in London in 1952. And he was a very popular session musician amongst the studios, and he was enticed to join Wings in 1978, and he remained with the band all the way to the end in 1981 when the band stopped. Now the only album that Lawrence actually performed on was Back to the Egg, which is a classic album. It's my favourite of Wings albums anyway. So yeah, Lawrence performed on that, and he also appeared on Good Night Tonight, and the B-side. My mind's gone a blank. It's Good Night Tonight anyway is the single, and I'm sure I'll be getting loads of people write into me to say what the B-side is. I know what it is, don't write in. I just can't remember it off the top of my head. And however, he does appear in some videos for Wings songs that he Daytime, Nighttime Suffering. There you go. That was it. So he also appears in some Wings videos that he never even performed on. So he's in the track I've Had Enough from London Town, as well as McCartney's solo recording of and video of Wonderful Christmas Time. So you can see him and the rest of the band in those videos, even though they weren't actually involved in any of the recording. Now for me, Back to the Egg is brought to life with Lawrence's guitar work, and he really does bring stuff to the band. And he continued to work with Paul and the rest of the band Wings right up until Paul was rehearsing for Tug of War, and then that's when it stopped. And there is actually video footage, if you check YouTube, of him and the band performing and rehearsing some stuff for Paul's Tug of War album. So he left Wings and returned to session work, and he also appeared on another Beatles connection. Bear with me. Ta-da! Ringo's Stop and Smell the Roses. He actually appears on here as well, guitarist. and they've miscredited him on the within the album. They actually call him Lawrence Jaba, but it's actually Lawrence Jaba. And he also released some solo stuff, and he's released a track called Maisie, and that's actually got Paul and Denny Laine performing on it as well. So check that out. I'm sure that must be floating around the internet somewhere. Track Maisie by Lawrence Jaba. Yeah, as I say, he's released a series of solo albums since then, and one of them is his interpretations of Beatles songs, which is fantastic. Now, during the pandemic, he was doing free live concerts, like online. You could just watch him every day. Tea Time with Lawrence, I think it was, or Tea with Lawrence, and he would perform jazz songs, his own compositions, Beatles songs, Wings songs, and yeah, every day. So that was fantastic to actually be able to get to see him play online. Okay, and now we move on to the very last member of Wings, and that's Steve Holley, who was the drummer who was brought in at the end. So Steve was born in London in 1954, and actually he must be the youngest member of Wings. I think I said Jimmy McCulloch in 1952, but 1954 Steve Holley is. So like Lawrence, Steve was brought in for into the band in '78 for the Back to the Egg sessions, and also toured with the band in the '79 tour around the UK. And unfortunately, it was that particular tour where Paul got arrested going into Japan, and that was the end of it. Yeah, the tour was cut short. Paul was arrested for entering Japan with some marijuana. However, unlike like Lawrence, Steve continued to rehearse with the band up until its demise in 1981. After Wings, he worked with people such as Julian Lennon on his album Velotte, and in 2020 he joined Ian Hunter in sort of like that incarnation of Mott the Hoople. And my friend John Jepson, sadly no longer with us, he would have absolutely loved that. He was a big Mott the Hoople fan and Wings fan, so to see Steve Holley in Mott the Hoople, he would have loved. So that sort of rounds up where they are now. We still do get them perform together, which is fantastic. All of Paul and Linda's sidekicks from Wings have performed at Beatle fests and conventions around the world. So I have a little list here. So Denny Laine, Lawrence Jaba and Steve Holley have performed together in '97, 2014, 2019. They've all performed together. And then you've got Denny Laine, Lawrence Jaba and Denny Iwell, and they performed together in 2007, 2014, 2017, and in 2018 they were also joined by Steve Holley. The two Dennys, Denny Laine and Denny Iwell, performed together in 2010, and finally in 2019 Denny Laine, Lawrence Jaba and Steve Holley sort of reformed Wings minus Paul and Linda, and they played and recreated a live show of the Back to the Egg album. How fantastic. Now I know that they were also due to perform back in I think it was probably 2020 in Liverpool, and unfortunately the pandemic stopped all that, but who knows, in the future we may be able to get to see them again. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's been informative. I've really learnt a lot from doing a little bit of the research that I've done. Please click the button down here to subscribe. Somewhere up here will be some videos for you to follow, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.